Two questions haunted my study of this text this week. And so I ask you to wrestle along with me on each of these two things. The first question for me was, what is a blessing? It's one of those religious words that's so easy to take for granted. But if one of your friends who doesn't go to church would ask you what in the world is a blessing or what it means to be blessed, how would you answer that? The word translated here in our text as blessing can mean happy, fortunate, well off, and more. But suppose for a moment that we stick with the traditional word blessed. This word too has several meanings. It can indicate special favor, unique standing, empowerment, endowment, and more. So maybe the question isn't what does it mean, but rather, what does it feel like? What does it feel like when you are blessed or blessed? Blessing is not something that can be pursued. It can only be received as a gift. To be blessed feels like you have someone's unconditional regard. It feels like you will not and will never be alone, like you will be accompanied wherever you go. Being blessed feels like you have the capacity to rise above present circumstances, like you're more than the sum of your parts or your past experiences. Being blessed feels like you have worth, not because of something you did or something you might do, but simply because of who you are, simply because you deserve it. What is so powerful about receiving a blessing that we end every worship service with one? One thing occurs to me is how rare it is, how rare it was back then, and how rare it still is today to receive a blessing. Jesus lived in a culture of honor and shame, and he defied that culture by offering blessing. We also live in a culture of affirmation and blame, and we also need to defy both of those by offering blessing. So first, affirmation. Why would we need to defy affirmation? Well, notice these days how often kids get medals, ribbons, and trophies merely for showing up, merely for participating. When I was a kid, you had to win to get those affirmations. Now, such awards mean next to nothing. Affirmation is nice, but it's often empty. And then there's blame. This is our national pastime. It's the politician's fault. It's my teacher's fault. It's my parents' fault. And on and on. Blame is a way of discharging pain and disappointment without taking any responsibility. Sometimes I think we've been taught to pursue happiness and settle for affirmation, and when neither of those work out, resort to blame. So in place of empty affirmation and corrosive blame, let's substitute blessing. God's unconditional regard for us, assurance to accompany us, power to help us persevere and even flourish, and a promise that we deserve love and honor and respect. Blessing is something that cannot be pursued, but can only be received as a gift. Okay, the second question that haunted me this week. Why these people in these Beatitudes? Think about it. The people that Jesus names as blessed most certainly are not people that society continues blessed, which is partly why I think Jesus chose them. Because in this sermon, he's not offering us a recipe for success or keys to happiness. Instead, he's demonstrating once again that God regularly and relentlessly shows up just where we least expect God to be, in order to give us freely what we can never earn or achieve: blessedness. But that's just part of it. I also think that Jesus chooses these states precisely because in our moments of disappointment or despair, we're likely finally to abandon cultural stereotypes about blessing, happiness, wealth, fame, or power. And we can finally be open to the presence of God that gives without asking in return and blesses us that we might be a blessing to each other. Maybe that's what true blessing is. Drawing together as the family of God, seeing each other as God's beloved children, meeting each other at points of our brokenness, and conveying to each other our and God's promises of regard, presence, accompaniment, and above all, worthiness. We are worthy of blessing, for God has created us and has called us blessed.